In a cozy little farmyard on the edge of a sleepy village, there lived a bright feathered hen named Ruby. Her feathers were a shiny shade of red that glimmered in the morning sunlight like a ruby stone. And that's exactly how she got her name. Ruby was small but full of energy. Every morning she woke up before the rooster even thought about crowing. She stretched her wings, gave a little shake, and said cheerfully, "Good morning, sunshine. Let's make today a great day." Ruby wasn't just cheerful, she was hard-working too. She kept her little corner of the barnyard neat, tended her garden, and always made sure her chicks, Peep, Pip, and Pop, had full tummies before the day began. Around Ruby lived a group of rather lazy neighbors. There was Charlie the cat, who loved to nap in the hay all day long. Danny the dog, who pretended to be guarding the barn, but really just liked lying in the shade. And Penny the pig, who was always rolling in the mud, humming a tune about how comfortable life could be if you never did any chores. Ruby liked her neighbors. They were friendly enough, but she often shook her head when she saw them snoozing or fooling around while there was work to be done. One bright spring morning, Ruby was scratching in the dirt behind the barn when she found something shiny. She pecked at it, then tilted her head to get a better look. It was a handful of golden wheat grains. "Well, would you look at that?" Ruby clucked in excitement. "If I plant these, they'll grow into tall, golden wheat stalks. And from that wheat I could make flour, and from flour I could bake the most delicious bread in the world." Her eyes sparkled with the thought. Ruby turned and called out to her neighbors. "Charlie! Danny! Penny! Come quick! I found something wonderful." Slowly her three friends appeared, yawning, stretching, and clearly not in any hurry. "What is it now, Ruby?" yawned Charlie, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Look," Ruby said, spreading the grains in her wing. "These are wheat seeds. If we plant them, they'll grow, and later we can bake bread. Fresh, warm, soft bread." "Bread?" Danny the dog's ears perked up. I do love bread, especially with butter." "Sounds nice," said Penny the pig, licking her lips. "But planting sounds like work," Ruby smiled politely. "Well, it is work, but it'll be worth it. So, who will help me plant the wheat?" Charlie stretched and yawned. "Not I," he said. "Planting is dirty work, and I just cleaned my paws." "Not I," said Danny, rolling over on his back. "The sun feels too good today." "Not I," grunted Penny. "I'm busy." "Relaxing." Ruby sighed softly, but she didn't argue. She gathered the grains and said, "Then I'll do it myself." And she did. Ruby spent the whole morning digging little holes in neat rows, dropping in the seeds one by one. She watered them carefully and covered them with soft soil. By the time the sun was high overhead, she was tired, but proud. Days turned into weeks. Every morning, Ruby checked her little patch of land. Tiny green shoots poked through the brown soil, reaching for the sky. "Look at them grow," she said proudly. "Soon we'll have golden wheat." One afternoon she called again to her friends. "Charlie! Danny! Penny! The wheat needs watering and weeding. Who will help me take care of it?" Charlie blinked lazily from his spot on the fence. "Not I," he said. "Water might splash on my fur." "Not I," said Danny. "I'm watching the clouds." "They look like bones today." "Not I," said Penny, rolling in the mud. "It's too hot for work," Ruby sighed again, wiped her wings, and said, "Then I'll do it myself." And she did, day after day. She pulled out weeds, watered the wheat, and kept the soil soft and clean. Her friends watched her sometimes and said things like, "You work too hard, Ruby." But Ruby just smiled. "Hard work today means joy tomorrow," she said. As summer passed, the wheat grew tall and golden, swaying beautifully in the wind. The sight made Ruby's heart swell with pride. One morning, Ruby knew the time had come. She plucked a grain from the stalk, rubbed it between her claws, and smiled. "It's ready," she said. "The wheat is ready to harvest." She called out again, "Charlie! Danny! Penny! Who will help me cut the wheat?" Charlie licked his paw and said, "Not I. My claws are too sharp for cutting wheat." Danny wagged his tail lazily. "Not I. Harvesting sounds tiring." Penny rolled over. "Not I. I'm busy." "Thinking about lunch." Ruby shook her head. "Then I'll do it myself." She worked all day long in the warm sun, cutting the golden stalks, bundling them together, and carrying them back to the barn. It was hot, dusty work, and her feathers stuck to her wings. But she didn't complain once. When the job was done, she looked at her big pile of wheat and said proudly, "Now, we're one step closer to bread." The next step was to take the wheat to the mill and have it ground into flour. Ruby called out again, "Charlie! Danny! Penny! Who will help me take the wheat to the mill?" Charlie blinked slowly. "Not I, I'm allergic to dust." Danny shook his head. "Not I, I'm guarding the yard." Penny smiled lazily. "Not I, my legs are sore." Ruby sighed but smiled kindly. "Then I'll do it myself." She loaded the wheat onto her little cart, hitched it to herself, and began the long walk to the mill at the end of the lane. The road was uneven, the cart was heavy, and the sun was blazing. But Ruby kept going step by step, humming a tune to keep her spirits high. At the mill, the miller smiled. "Well, if it isn't Ruby the hen. Doing all this by yourself?" Ruby nodded. "Yes, sir. My friends are resting." The miller chuckled kindly and helped her pour the wheat into the grinder. Soon the air was filled with the soft, comforting scent of freshly ground flour. Ruby collected the fine white flour into a sack, thanked the miller, and started back home. By the time she reached the barn, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Ruby was exhausted, but her heart was full. The next morning, Ruby looked at her bag of flour and smiled. "Now for the best part," she said. "Time to bake some bread." She called again to her neighbors, "Charlie! Danny! Penny! Who will help me bake the bread?" Charlie sniffed. "Not I. My fur might smell like smoke." Danny stretched. "Not I. Baking sounds complicated." Penny yawned. "Not I. I'd rather eat than cook." Ruby nodded patiently. "Then I'll do it myself." She gathered the flour, added water, yeast, and salt, and began to knead the dough. Her little wings worked hard, folding and pressing until it was smooth and stretchy. Her chicks, Peep, Pip, and Pop, chirped around her excitedly. "Mama, can we help?" Ruby smiled warmly. "Of course, my darlings. You can help me watch it rise." Together they placed the dough in a big bowl, covered it with a cloth, and waited. The smell of yeast filled the air. When it was ready, Ruby shaped it into loaves and slid them into the warm oven. Soon, the whole barnyard smelled like heaven, rich, toasty, and buttery. Even Charlie, Danny, and Penny sniffed the air hungrily. What's that delicious smell?" asked Danny. "It must be Ruby's bread," said Penny, licking her lips when the bread was golden brown. Ruby pulled it from the oven and placed it on the windowsill to cool. The loaves looked perfect, round, crusty, and warm. She wiped her wings and said happily, "Now, who will help me eat the bread?" Suddenly her 3 neighbors came running. "I will!" said Charlie eagerly. "I will!" said Danny, wagging his tail. "I will!" squealed Penny, already reaching for a loaf. Ruby raised an eyebrow and said gently, "Oh, you will you? But tell me, who helped me plant the wheat?" "Not I," mumbled Charlie, looking down. "Who helped me water and weed it?" "Not I," said Danny softly. "Who helped me harvest it, carry it, and bake it?" "Not I," whispered Penny, her ears drooping. Ruby smiled kindly but firmly. "Then I'll eat it myself, with my little chicks." And that's exactly what she did. Ruby and her chicks sat at their small table, eating the warm, fresh bread together. It was the best bread they had ever tasted, soft inside, crispy outside, and made with pure love and effort. The others watched quietly. For the first time, Charlie, Danny, and Penny felt a little ashamed. The next morning, when Ruby stepped outside, she was surprised to find Charlie sweeping the yard, Danny carrying buckets of water, and Penny cleaning the pig pen. "What's all this?" Ruby asked, smiling. Charlie looked up and said, "We realized we haven't been very good friends. We'd like to help from now on." Danny nodded. "We want to work with you, not just eat your bread." Penny grinned. "Maybe next time I'll bake a pie for everyone." Ruby's heart swelled with happiness. "That's wonderful," she said. "There's always room for helpers in my kitchen." From that day on, the barnyard changed. Everyone worked together. When there was planting to be done, Charlie dug the holes. When there was watering, Danny fetched the buckets. Penny used her big snout to carry tools, and when the next harvest came, they all celebrated together, laughing, baking, and sharing the bread that everyone had helped to make.